Hi, it's Lynn with Soft Squares. Today we're going to talk about what to do when you have extra fabric after you've done a project. So in the case of the 3-yard quilt that I just finished, this is what I had left over from that. And there's actually some big pieces in here which could go into my scrap bins, which I'll do that on another video. But there's also, they all coordinate, and some of these are just like not big enough to do much with unless they are with something, meaning used together. And sometimes you just want to make an additional project that goes with what you just made. And so I have made this, which is a pillow cover with an envelope enclosure that I made with the scraps from this, and this is still scraps. So I just did a video, which I will link here, making a quilt out of this book. I made this quilt right here, and I used, well, here it is. Here's the quilt. Might as well just open it up and share it with you. I just posted this video, and I asked what I should do for the back, and I have decided I am going to put this fabric on the back. I think it will be perfect. So I have got my backing and my really cute quilt ready to go. And now that I'm done with that, what's left is to quilt it and bind it. Now I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm kind of on a roll with sewing. So what I'm going to do is show you what I do with the quilt when I get to this part, as well as the extra fabric that I get from it. Now this quilt, what I do is I just fold it up all nice and pretty, and then I put the backing fabric, and I already cut it and trim it to size. See, here's my seam. And so I get a piece of paper and I write the measurements of what each of these are, the front and the back. And I also, if I can, put the binding fabric in there. So here's my binding fabric. And so it is going in the bag with this stuff too, so that it is all in one place when I'm ready to do it. But I had a lot of fabric left over from this project, like all of this. And it gave me some ideas. I have decided I want to use the leftover scraps and make a throw pillow. So what I've done is these are actually pieces from the quilt itself, and I have made it into, using the scraps, just turn, you can do whatever you want, but I ended up having one of these panels and could frame it. I want to make a 12 by 16 rectangle block or pillow, and this right now is 13 by 17, so I've gone out 1 extra inch to allow for the seam allowance. Now I'm going to show you how to make this. I'm going to show you my whole process on how we do that, and I'm going to use the envelope enclosure, and I'm going to show you how easy that is. And I do quilt this on my standard machine, so you'll get to see how I do that. So I'm really excited. I've gone ahead and started the project. So like I said, I made my block. You can use solid fabric like I showed you. You can use a panel. You can create what you want. You can make it look like the quilt or nothing like the quilt, but this is what I've come up with. So get your piece, and just remember the pillow forms come in 12 by 12, 14 by 14, 16 by 16, 18 by 18, 20 by 20. They might come bigger than that, I'm not sure, but those are usually in increments of 2, and they're square, with the exception of the 12 by 16. And this just turned into a 12 by 16 because of this piece right here. So that's what I ended up with. Now I've already put batting on here, and it's just stuck to it because it's what it does. So you're going to cut a piece of batting the size of your top piece, okay? And then you're going to take a piece of fabric that you don't really care about, but this still looks nice. So what I've done is I found this white cotton fabric. This is all the size, all the bigger that remnant was. It's perfect for what I'm going to do. I like to use muslin, and I just like everything enclosed, so I don't want the batting to be on the inside or to be visible. So that's what we're doing, is we are putting the top, let me go to this camera, putting our batting, and let's see if we can do this. And again, this batting's already been cut to size, and so is this top piece. But you're gonna make a sandwich. You can spray it if you want. I'm not too worried about it because of its size. Then you're going to, I got this off a little bit, fix this. You're going to trim it down, and then we're going to take it to the machine and top stitch. Typically I will do a stitch in the ditch. If you're creative and you feel like doing an all over swirl or pattern, go for it. But there's two reasons why I like the stitch in the ditch. One, it disappears, and to me this has a lot going on, so to quilt it, I personally don't think it needs it. And the other is there's a lot of seams here, and this is meant to be washed, and I want this to hold up. So what I want to do is stitch in the ditch and just off to the side, which will give it a nice, it'll be like framing it all around the main parts of the blocks, and it will, whoops, hold it against this, but it will also help hold these down and catch it. Did that make sense? So I want to quilt this. Now if this was a solid piece, you could leave it. This one right here, I just did two, that's all I did for the quilting, is these two lines. Because ideally you want it to be like 4 inches or less. At least that's what I've heard, might be 6, but this was plenty for this. And then the back I actually did a little bit tighter. But I didn't want to do a whole lot with that, but because it has batting in there, it needs something or it's going to ball up and be all weird. So if you don't line it, or actually you can still line it, but if you don't put batting in it, you could probably get away with not quilting it if you don't have seams. Me personally, I'm going to quilt this. So first let's cut this down, and then again we're going to my machine and we're going to stitch. I don't like what I've got going on here. Let's see. All right, that's better. We are going to do the envelope enclosure. God, I just changed the blade and I don't know why it's doing that. Brand new blade. Anyway, we're going to show you how to do the envelope enclosure, which is super fast and super easy. The majority of your time is spent quilting, and if you do like what I did where you built the block, you might have some stuff there. I could leave these little ends on for now, but I'm already in the middle of trimming this. Now, if I had a serger, this is where I would use it. Okay, I didn't take it back. I have a serger, but if you have a serger, you may want to pull it out. My serger is still in its bag. I haven't pulled it out with my move. So I am going to do regular sewing machine when I do put this together. So this, anybody can do this. You don't have to have a serger. I like the finished edge, but I'll show you how to do that with a regular sewing machine. Okay, over to the machine we go. Just to be safe, I am going to pin baste this because it may wiggle. You want to make sure your ends are not getting wrapped up. I probably should just use my 505. I have a lot of it. Last summer, my sister and I did some minky blankets, and I'll try to reference that here too. We mass produced a whole bunch of them, and we also did the quilting as you go, minky front and back. It was fun. It was a big heavy project, and we used a ton of 505 spray, and then we ran out and we couldn't find it anywhere. And so when I found it, I was hoarding it. So I was going through it, and I was still going through it. And then I sent my husband to the store to buy some because I remember them having a couple more cans left, and he went in and bought those. And the next thing I know, I get a package in the mail from somebody with my name on there, and he's like, "What did you order?" And long story short, he was surprising me by ordering a 6-pack case of the tall, large bottles of the 505 spray. so I wouldn't run out again. And ironically, I have hardly needed the 505 spray since that, but I am stocked up, so I don't have a shortage of that. All right, so let's go to the machine. Well, I just did some filming and the video wasn't on. Not a big deal, you know how to do this. I just put this in the sewing machine with my quilt sandwich, and I decided to stitch just above the ditch because that's where the seams were coming together, and I personally wanted to try to catch this. Now I've gone through it right here, and I've also gone through it right here, and honestly I could leave it like this, and I might, but I have caught all of my individual pieces are caught somewhere in one of these stitches. Does that make sense? So they should be locked in pretty good. If something should come apart, it would be like in the middle, but it won't come out. I am kind of wanting to do something through here. You know what? I'm liking it just how it is, but this is the back side. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it just how it is. We're gonna move on. So you can make it as complicated or simple as you want. So now what we're going to do is take the back piece, and I'm using this fabric on the back of my quilt, and it happens to be where I have big pieces, and I'm going to use this on the back of this. And I'm not going to use this piece because the selvage barely makes it to the edge, and it's not going to be pretty, so it pains me, but I'm going to cut into this big piece because my goal is to save the bigger pieces, is get as many or much of that as you can to be used for a bigger project. In fact, I was even thinking this would be really pretty as a large 20 or 22 square pillow, and then have this and the two of them on the bed. Wouldn't that just be pretty? But if that's the case, then I need both sides of this. So let me rethink this. There's a lot of fabric here, and it is short. It is short by like a half an inch. It's okay. Realistically, people don't use pillows very often anymore, and I don't know what's gonna happen to this. Not gonna worry about the what ifs, although this could be used for something else. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make the envelope closure. And so what we're going to do is put this face up, and then we're going to put our two pieces face down on top of it. But we have to figure out what size we want. And I like to give it a 3 or 4 inch overlap. And so you can put it anywhere you want. I don't know of a rule, and I've made a lot of these. But the thing is, you have to keep in mind that the pillow form has to fit in there. And if you put it too far to the side and you have the envelope opening, you might struggle to get the pillow form into the pillow cover. So I like to have it overlap it kind of off center. So I think I'm going to do one of these at 7. And then I like to double it over, going all the way back to the seam. So that way it's completely enclosed. But if you're running short on fabric or trying to save, you can easily give it just a pretty edge stitch, fold over stitch. But I'm gonna do that where I need 14 inches to go here, 7 up and 7 down. And then over here, let me think here. Let's come into about here. Nope, I lied. I don't like that measurement I just told you. I'm gonna do this kind of here. All right, so what this is, I know it's minor, it's weird. It is 9 inches in, so double that is 18. So I need a piece that's 18 by 13, because that's the width of this. So I will cut one of those 18 by 13. And then over here, I need it to overlap. And if I do 18 by 13, also, there is an overlap, but not very much because it's barely, so I want to go over maybe to the 10 mark or 10 and a half mark. I'm just going to play it safe and do 21 inches. So 10 and a half times 2. We can always shorten that. So we've got 18 and 21. Now, this is the width of fabric. Oh, you know what? One thing I didn't even think about. See, I've got this funky fabric right here that already, you know, when I use it, this is how it folds. Meaning, I might be able to just work with what I've got. Does that make any sense? So if we're going to pretend that the rough edge is on that. But if I were to use these two, wanting them to go there, that's actually a good overlap. Problem solved. I am actually going to cut the edge off, the salvage edge off, but I'm going to square these up but use the width of this fabric. It's going to be perfect. Again, it's going to be an overhang by a couple inches, which is exactly what I want, and I just lucked out that that's how that worked. So let's square this up and then attach. So the raw edge or rough edge that you're seeing on here is from when I put my backing together. A trick that I do to keep my fabric straight, because prints can change, and anyway, I will rip the fabric. So I find out how big I want it, and then I let her rip. And I know it's a straight edge, it's just a rough straight edge. Oh, what the heck. We'll do this right here. Now we decided, just double check. I believe that this is 13, but I've done so many numbers. Yep. So we're gonna come over 13. This is how wide I'm gonna make it a little bigger. Dang it, that rotary cutter is just gonna drive me crazy. How wide my blanket or my little pillow is. So what we're gonna do is right side up, put that there. Right side up, put this one here. And since they're exactly the same, it doesn't matter. However, if you were to have one piece a little more over than the other, I would just pay attention to how that's going to open and see if it's really the direction or the order that you want. Now I left this a little big, and I did that on purpose. Not very big, but just a little. So I'm going to pin this in place. I'm going to make sure. I don't like these pins. They're cute. I don't like them. Okay. Turn it over and see how I've got this extra here. Yeah, we're good. No, we're not. I want more of an over. No, we're good. We totally are good. So I am going to, if I had my serger, just zip up around all of these and be done. Since I'm going to use my sewing machine, I'm going to come in, but only stick with my 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to go back and do a zigzag stitch on top of that. I'm going to make sure my corners will let me turn and that I don't have a lot of bulk with this stuff. So right now I'm going to get rid of this. You know, rotary cutter, you're not my friend. I refuse to change the blade because I just replaced the blade. And unless I put it in backwards, and I don't know if there is a right or a wrong way, I'm determined to make this work. So if you know why it's misbehaving, tell me. All right, so this one, I actually did get it up to the edge, and we are good. I was sure close on that. And then we have some extra over here. Not a bad time to make sure you are still square. Let's see here. Yep. Okay, let's go to the machine. I am going to sew with this side up because I want to make sure that I catch those edges. All right, so just make sure I got everything, because sometimes things move and I didn't think about putting more pins in here. We did it. All right, so there's that. Now I'm going to trim this up so it's a little thinner and go around with a zigzag stitch. And I ended up using my standard foot and just the width of my standard foot. So the 3/8 of an inch is what I used instead of a 1/4 inch. Just whatever you want to do, just make sure you have enough allowance, seam allowance, to fit it. And you could do a 1/2 inch. What I'm doing right now is I'm lining up the sew line right on my 1/4 mark on my ruler. And that way I know everything is coming at a 1/4 of an inch. For sewing purposes, it was a little easier for me just to do the width of the foot. And then I started trimming this at a 1/4 inch because I'm used to doing that. So do whatever you want, finish it however you want. I'm always random. Okay, so back to the sewing machine I go for a zigzag stitch. I do want to clip these, and then when I do my zigzag stitch, it will be nice and done. Now I don't know if you noticed this, but when I got to this part where the fabric is overlapped, I double stitched, triple stitched, went over it multiple times because there's a lot of stress specifically right there. And I'm a reinforcer. Let's do it again. Oops. So what I do is I widen my stitch, and I widen the zigzag, shorten the stitch. Whatever your preferred setting is. You always want to make sure you're on the inside of the zig when you turn your corner, otherwise you're going to be off, because the whole goal is to zig over the edge so that it makes it nice and finished. Probably easier to see the zigzag on the white side, but see, I made it right on the edge. It's going to keep this from fraying. It's also just going to make it look nice and clean on the inside. I sell a lot of pillow covers on Etsy, and my reviews, the biggest thing that they're like say is how nice it is that it's completely enclosed. And again, it's just me. I want it to stay together. But I did notice I got my zigzag a little wide right here, so I want to see what this looks like if I turn it inside out. It might be just fine. Oh, it is just fine. I got threads everywhere. Okay, let's turn this guy inside out. And I just had a pointer tool. Of course, I can't find it right now. Isn't that Murphy's Law? It was in my way for the longest time. Oh, see? It's right there. All right, so let's turn this inside out. Oh, I want to show you the corners. See how I cut that off? And then when I got up to the corner, I put the needle down in the corner, and then I turned the fabric, and it just looks good, and it's not really bulky. So that's my tip on that. So now we're just going to turn this inside out. And then we'll get the corners all squared away. I'll give it a good press, but my iron has turned itself off, so I might not do it on the video, but that would be a nice final step. Now when you use your pointer, even though you've got lots of reinforcements and lots of layers, be careful. Try not to poke through it. But the nice thing is you can get a nice point if you have the patience. Let's see, it just seems like there's a little bit still I could call good. Now I did the flip, stitch and flip version. You could put a quilt binding on it, do the same thing. Start with the same size because you're going to lose with your seam allowance with the binding, but then border it like I did on this one. So pillows, I usually do it this way. I'll be honest, it's easier the other way because I put enough bindings on. It's like second nature. All right. Maybe not. I fear I'm going to poke through if I keep working on that. We'll come back if I need to. So some kind of poking tool would be in your advantage, to your advantage. Do not use your scissors. I can tell you from experience, you can make a big hole. Because as you're tugging with it like I am right now, you've got a sharp edge and it could do something. Okay, so there is the back. There is the front. If you do labels, you stitch it in, sew it on, do whatever. But that is my 12 by 16 pillow cover with the envelope enclosure and the quilted front, enclosed quilted front with the flip and stitch. And I want to show you another 12 by 16 pillowcase that I made and then put the form in here and see how it does. Aren't these cute? This is Halloween and it's glow in the dark stuff. And this is what I had left over after I made a couple, okay, 3 Halloween quilts last year. And I just like, this is a big piece. I can make a pillow out of it. And it was super simple. That's all I did with the envelope enclosure. And again, I was trying to use the pieces of fabric that I had. One of the quilts was backed with this orange. So I put that on the back of this one. And I didn't quilt this, but I don't know if you can see, I actually pieced this together. And you probably wouldn't know it if I hadn't pointed it out. It's a little messy, not too bad. All right, and then here's the last one. This is very different. I just used a solid piece and I did quilt it and then I gave it this type of a binding. So I did this stitch and flip, but I made it a couple inches bigger and then I stitched right around where it needed to be and then I did a secondary stitch because I felt like it. But it also is a, pillow closure, a pocket pillow closure. And wouldn't you know it, I did not have a pillow cover for these. I actually used stuffing. Huh. Even better. So these are meant to fit on pillow forms. If you don't want to use a pillow form, you can just have it completely enclosed and stuff it and then it never comes out. If you do put stuffing in it and give it to someone, I would highly recommend making a pillow for your stuffing before you stuff it. This is more so I could take some pictures. I really thought I had a pillow form. So, but anyway, this is what it would look like. I don't want to deal with the stuffing coming out of that. But look how cute. Actually, if I remember correctly, this is a little bit on the small side. And I bet I can make it fit in here just to get an idea of size. And just, I want to see it finished. Yeah, I think I'm going to make myself some forms, pillow forms, because it do have some stuffing. Look how cute. So you can go around and do a top stitch around the very edge if you really want to. I kind of like doing that. I don't do it so much on pillows, but after I press it, then it'll be a little more of a nice seam right there, right where right now it's just kind of fighting me. But there, I think that'd be really pretty with the quilt. So there you go. That's how you make a pillow with an envelope closure, with all kinds of tips and tricks, hopefully, so you got something out of that that will help you do things with your scraps. Let's go back to this. When I have pieces that don't end up in another project, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot like in my little bags, and they're good size like this, what I do is I come down to my mat and I measure it, and this is 3 inches. It's slightly over 3. So anything that's at least whatever increment that we're doing, and then I put them in my bins, and I'll show you. All right, so here's my bucket of strips that are 3 inches. So I have 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, and 3 plus for strips. And so this is a really good place to go when I'm looking for things. The nice thing is I know what these are, and this is actually folded in half or folded over, so I know that's big. And these were all the same, so I did keep them together. I don't do that very often, but so this is what I would do with this piece. Stick it in here, and if I didn't decide to make a scrap, or for whatever reason need something that size, that's where that goes. Now this one is kind of chunky. He's big, and he actually is 8 inches. I'm going to put him in my chunky stuff. I'll show you what that is. So I have like this bin, one of many. This is where I put bigger pieces that are just, you'll see what I'm talking about. They're big, they're usable. This actually could go in the strip bucket, but they're all kind of short. I don't know why they're in here, but anyway, so these are some big pieces that are still, you know, this is like a 10-inch block, or 10 inch by 4 or 6 or something odd. But they're big pieces, and they can be used for applique. These are folded. And so that's kind of my goal with this, is if I need a bigger piece, you might need it for anything, but applique is what comes to mind if I want to do that. So that is just going to go in there with my applique bin. I also saved my batting. That's how I got my scrap for this. I do a lot with batting scraps. I do quilt as you go, and then I also do things like in here, which is basically the same thing. And so if you do your own quilting, don't throw your batting away unless it's super small. Like I did throw this piece away, and it to me is kind of borderline, might keep it, might not, because you can patch batting. Just do a wide zigzag and a tight stitch and just go over it. And there's even some special tape. I've seen long armors where they just fold it over. I don't like the fact that it might be a little bulkier, but this is 2.5 inches, and it actually probably is worth saving because I can get a 5-inch square out of this, and that would be a turn pack. See how I did that? So if I just cut this at 5, put the other half next to it, zigzagged it, it's a good sized piece of batting. Now, and sometimes I am running short on pieces, and that's just a little teeny bit. And these pieces save me. I've also pieced together in a pinch some blankets with lots of little pieces, not tons, but like more than I was comfortable with, but they were in there really good, and it got me through the project. Tell me what you do with your scraps. I'm curious if I'm the only one who collects them and saves them for a project that may or may never happen. But when I get big pieces, I just can't let them go. Let me know what you think. Thanks for your time, everybody. Have a great day.